Gonna talk about different types of shifts in economy, right? We all know that economy is never stays the same. Like it just changes its form, shape, uh, and it's really important to make sure that you're able to distinguish different types of changes in the shape of economy that can take place in different countries, different societies, right? And I think there are mainly five types of shifts in my opinion, so I can talk about each of them. And yeah, I just thought about this topic after reading this article. Japan's defense budget to reach 1.9% of GDP in fiscal 2026. Some people even argue that Japan is remilitarizing, shifting away from the path of pacifism, pacifism that Japan has adopted after World War II. Yeah, we're basically expanding military budget, but I'm gonna go back to this at the end of this session because it is related to one shift in the economy that can happen. I'm gonna use production possibility frontier or someone. In other words, it's production possibility curve. Yeah, PPC. It's either PPC or PPF. They're same things. I'm gonna use this model to illustrate the shift of the economy. It's a model that illustrates the maximum possible combination of different goods and services an economy can produce when all resources are fully and efficiently utilized. I can quickly draw this. Okay, so the diagram would look like this, and we'll have this line, and we're gonna have good A and good B. And this A and B can be anything, right? Economy can be operating anywhere within this curve or on this curve. It can operate at here, or it can operate at here, or it can be operating at here. It is not possible for the economy to be uh, operating at this point. Why is it not possible? Because it is not possible uh, because it's out of this curve, and this curve, this one, this curve represents the maximum amount of production that economy can achieve when all the resources available are fully utilized. And if it's out of that, that means production, they're producing more than what is supposed to be possible using all the resources available in the economy. That means that is impossible by definition. But inside the curve is possible. That means they're not fully utilizing their resources, right? We can put a point here and find out how much good A and B is produced. So this is how much good A is produced, and this is how much good B is produced. But if our economy is operating here, then they're probably making more A than B before. Sorry, they're probably making more A than before. Instead, they have sacrificed some production of B. Um, this is just one example. But if economy is operating here, they're making this much of good A and this much of good B. When economy is inside curve, they can expand their production, both of their production, without sacrificing any of them, right? If economy is fully utilizing all the resources, there are no resources left in the economy. In that case, they have to, if they want to, in this situation here, they can only increase the production of one of their goods by sacrificing the other. So if they shift this way, uh, they've increased good A, but they have decreased production of good B, right? But when economy is producing inside the curve, that's not the case because this is the production uh, of good A and B at this point. However, if economy has increased the production until here, now good A has increased and good B has increased too. So please make sure you know that difference, and this is production possibility frontier. Um, but a lot of people may wonder what this actually means, right? How is this actually related? It is very related, and saying good A and good B wouldn't be the best example. So I can go through each of them with the better examples, but I can explain the different types of shift. Let's start with demand-driven recession. Okay, recession. We know what recession is. It's a decline in economic activity over time, often measured as decrease in GDP. And we have countless examples of recession in our economies. The US has experienced 12 or 13 of them after World War II, and two of them are here: 2008 financial crisis and COVID recession. So when 2008 financial crisis happened, uh, this happened because people lost confidence, especially household and well also business. They all lost confidence. Those economic entities lost confidence, and they basically defer consumption and investment. They buy less than before, and that put pressure on firms to cut down their production, because firms will not continue at the same level of production when people are not buying much, right? So they reduce their production, they fire a bunch of people, GDP shrinks, and that's what happened. And let me put that, let me draw this with production possibility frontier. So it's going to look like this, and it can be, let's say, well, the good that comes here and good that comes here, or service that comes here, they should make sure that two of them will completely represent the entire production in the economy. That's the way that we should do. So the way to do it is we put goods here and we put service here, right? uh right, whatever the US is producing, it's either goods or services, right? Every single goods and services that US economy produce will fall into the category these categories, either goods and services, because they are goods and services, right? It can be other things. It can be something like, we can probably write like consumer goods, consumer goods slash service, and producer goods and services, or we can call this capital, in other word. But we can make this category. Most of the products produced in the economy, whether if it's US or Japan, will fall into this category, right? What about like massive like ovens that bakeries tend to buy and use? That's gonna fall into this category, right? Producer goods, or capital, in other words, or big factories that they make, that would be producer good too. But bread that you buy would be consumer good. It can be, um, I don't know, couch blanket, noodles, books, that will be consumer goods, right? Most of them will fall into these categories. However, make sure you know that we have more than producer goods and consumer goods. We have government goods, right? Goods and services that government pays for, like education. Education doesn't really fall into this category because they're not consumer spending. They're spent by government most of the time, unless you go to private school. So that's why I think it's just better to say goods and services, because nothing is out of this category, right? But something can be out of the category of consumer goods and producer goods. So let's just say goods and services. Well, we're only limited to name two types of goods or services. Be, be, it's not because we want to do this. Like, it just visually, that's the only way possible in a two dimensions, right? Well, if you have three dimensions, if I can make this model in a more in a three dimension space, which could be possible, then I can put like three different things. But that's not the case, so let's just give up, right? Like that. Okay, let's go back to the recession. 2008 financial crisis. What happened is economy was probably operating around here, and then it shifted to inside the curve. That's what happened. This is 2008. Oh, sorry. 2008 financial crisis, Great Recession, or COVID recession too. And why can I confidently say that? It is because, and when recession happens, uh, a lot of resources are left unused, right? A lot of resources available for producers, available for firms, will be left unused, because only because people don't buy those things. People cut their spending. Household wouldn't spend as much, and when they wouldn't spend as much, um, firms have to make decisions to cut their production. Although it's not because it's impossible to produce. Physically, it is possible to continue their production. However, economically it wouldn't make sense to continue the same level of production. So that's why they fire a bunch of people. They're gonna shut down the factories, although the factories are not destroyed or anything. They don't shut down the factories because it's not usable anymore. It is absolutely usable if they put people and if they put inputs into it. However, they shut down because people are not buying their products. So that's the best example of this shift, right? PPF, the point shifting inward. Same as COVID recession. It's not like production possibility, production capability was destroyed or anything. Well, some people die. You can call that as a destruction of or destroying of destruction of human capital, arguably. However, what happened mainly in COVID recession is that people stopped buying stuffs. People stopped going out because the government kind of encourage you to stay home, right? And don't go out shopping, don't go travel, things like that. So a lot of industry, especially travel industries or whatever the shops that restaurants or all these things suffered. It's not because they become impossible to produce things. They have it's totally possible for them to produce those restaurant foods and travel services and entertainments, leisures, movies, those things. It is possible. They have enough resources for that. However, people are not going to them to buy those things. So they have to give up, right? So this is recession, right? And recession is inefficient. It is inefficient by definition because there are a lot of resources left that is not used. The factory that is shut down, people who are unemployed, all of those people are able to work to produce goods and services, but they're not doing that. Yes, and when this happens, GDP shrinks, right? It's quite obvious, right? Uh, the level of goods that they're producing, let's say this is like X, it has shrinked, same as service, shrink. So we can tell that the total production, goods and services, has shrinked. That means GDP should be declining too. We can look at this data. GDP growth, United States. Let's look at 2020 when recession happens, COVID recession happens. Yes, see, negative 2.2, negative 2.2. That's recession, and this is what happened. Same as 2008 financial crisis. Yeah. See, ooh, in 2009, negative 2.6 GDP growth, meaning that the economic activity has shrunk by 2.6%, which is very catastrophic. But that's demand-driven recession. And let's move on to short-term growth. I like short-term growth. We can define short-term growth as like growth driven by demand. So it's basically opposite of this. Um, let's just draw this here. PPF, let's say services and goods. Oops, I have made it. Okay, let's just put goods here and services here. Okay, let's look at this. So short-term growth is when economies is operating at an efficient level, they increase their production by moving away from inside the curve. This is what happens. This is short-term growth. Short-term growth. And example of this is recovery after COVID and World War II in the US. So let's start with recovery after COVID, right? COVID recession happened. So economy has shifted from here to here. That's what happened, right? But after COVID, they went back, right? The economy went back to the production possibility curve. Because a lot of people were unemployed, a lot of factories were left unused. They are able to operate, but they just don't because people don't consume, right? But after COVID, kind of declines and like people started feeling like they can just go out and travel and have fun and go shopping. Yeah, aggregate demand has increased. So firms are now like seeing bunch of consumers household coming to them to buy their goods and services, so they need more people. They're going to start operating their factories that were left unused. They are going to hire more people that were left unused, which is unemployed people. So that's why it shifts outward. And well, the point of the economy. This shifts outward until it can only go until um, the production possibility curve, right? It cannot go out of this curve, right? This is why it's short term, right? It doesn't continue forever. They were able to grow only because there are a lot of resources in the economy available that is left unused, and they're gonna just start reusing them. So the economy, the production increase, so GDP increases. However, that has a limit. Once there are no resources left unused, whether if it's factories, building, people, laborers unused. Once they don't have that anymore, the economy wouldn't expand in such a way. So it's gonna be short term. And COVID recession is the example of that, as I said. And we can look at the evidence. After 2020, look at the economy expansion in 2021 is 6.1%. 6.1%, very, 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 very high GDP growth. However, did it continue the year after? No. The year after it was 2.5%, which is quite a normal GDP growth, right? So it's a short-term growth. We don't have a I haven't found the statistics for this, but same thing happened in World War II in the US. What happened in World War II is that, well, economy was kind of somewhat in recession, right? After Great Depression. Or economy was still sluggish. I guess the growth was still sluggish. There was more unemployment people. But World War II happened, right? Japan attacked Pearl Harbor, and Pacific War started. The U.S. decided to join World War II, and they needed to make a bunch of weapons and things like that. So government started buying a bunch of stuff. Government ordered private sectors to make all these things: tanks, weapons, uh, other things, weapons, missiles, or uh, uh, airplanes, and all these things used for military operation, right? And that increased aggregate demand. So a lot of resources in the U.S. economy were reused, although they were previously unused, used and left. Sorry, used left, left unused. They were used. They were left unused, right? Like unemployed people. So unemployment rate has gone down quite rapidly, and unemployment rate throughout the World War II Pacific War was very low in the U.S. And all these factories were used and things like that. So that was short-term growth. And did it continue forever? No. Well, first of all, war ended, right? War ended, and we didn't see as high GDP growth as what we saw during this period. So it's short-term growth, and we have other things. Let's move on to the next one, which is long-term growth. So it's basically production possibility frontier going, shifting outward, right? Services and goods. So this means the production capacity of the economy has expanded, uh, right? So this is long-term growth, and if this continues, the growth can continue. Well, unlike short-term growth, they don't have a clear limits, right? Well, it's not like they can infinitely expand in a short period of time, but as long as they spend some time, this can continue to growth, right? There's no limits in this. So this shift can happen. This is short-term growth. Long-term growth. An example of this is economic miracle in Japan after World War II, right? And reform and opening up in China. So both of them have a lot of similarities, right? Both of these countries showed economic miracles, and why this happened? It only happens when production capacity of the economy expands, and this happens when we invest. What do you mean by invest? Investment is firms or government. Well, it's mainly firms. Firms buying things that help their production, right? Again, I'm gonna say this again. Investment is firms buying things that help their production. So we can call this capital spending, right? Buy capitals. Um, when Korean War started, Japanese government, Japanese private sector started investing a lot, making a lot of factories and things like that to respond to the demand from the U.S. to make military related products to support South Korea. So massive investment happened. We saw a lot of factories building. We saw a lot of things like, and education also was also established. People went to school and they learned. They or probably better workforce than before, things like that. And as a result, production capability goes up. So the both goods and services uh, can surge. The production of goods and services can surge, right? Economic miracle happened in Japan for quite a long time as a result. And we also have an example in China, I think. China, yeah. Um, when Deng Xiaoping became powerful in Chinese politics, he adopted some policies. It's called reform and opening up in China. So uh, the government basically encouraged a lot of investment, both domestically and also from foreign firms. They made some areas where foreign firms can invest, right? So we have China here, and they made like a special economic zone, so firms from other countries can make an investment. They spend money to make factories, make factories, make ports, whatever that helps their production. So those uh, new investment will lead to a lot of production, right? And this obviously shifts the production possibility curve. That's what happened. So Chinese economy expanded quite rapidly until now. So that is an example of long-term growth. I would say that long-term growth is has some limits too, right? We tend to see more of long-term growth in the economies such as like developing economies, right? Because they still have, they have like potential to invest. But in the economies in already developed economies like US, South Korea, Japan, Europe, well, we can make further investment. We can update our facilities infrastructure. We can put more robots, AIs, whatever technologies. It is possible. However, it is not same as, for example, previously very poor countries like, let's say, Vietnam. It's different from Vietnam, where it has so much potential to put more factories and things like that, make a significant difference from what they were before. Then, uh, yeah, right, by building more factory and things like that. It's gonna be a rapid difference. However, U.S., Japan, we're already using like all these lands for factories and things like that. There's no chance to like rapidly improve the capitals and things like that. We can do some small things such as like improving people's education level, adapting some technology, but it wouldn't be a rapid growth, long term growth. And this partly explains why economies keeps growing, right? It's so most of the economy would look like this. GDP, let's say real GDP, would look like this. We have some upward and downward. However, the trend line itself always goes up over time, whether if it's Japan or China or the US. And the reason why the trend for GDP, economic activity, is generally upward is probably because there's constant investment in infrastructures or by firms, by private sectors, things like that. That's why it happened. And there's economy, if there's economy that makes almost no investment, theoretically, GDP should look like this, and well, maybe there's upward and downward, downturn and you know expansion because of, but they're fully driven by demand, right? Aggregate demand, people losing confidence in buying less, or people getting more confidence in buying more, things like that. This is what happens. However, there shouldn't be any upward trend. Uh, so we can also say that short-term growth that we talked about here is more like this, and long-term growth is this upward trend of the arrow. So that distinction is very important. Okay, I'm getting tired, so let's wrap this up. Okay, we have two more. Distraction. This is very simple. It's the opposite of long-term growth. So because of some, for some reasons, right? PPF shifts inward. This happens because, well, we have a very good example. Ukrainian economy, economic activity shrinking after Russia invaded. Currently, GDP growth in Ukraine is apparently positive, but when it was invaded in 2022, I believe 2022, right? Yeah. So we see the shrink, right? Economic activity, economic product, GDP was 199 billion in 2021, but in 2022 it was 161. So it has shrunk as a result of invasion, and this is because they're gonna, well, the production capability itself has been distracted. Infrastructure is destroyed by invasion, by war. Factories are destroyed. A lot of people left the country. People are also capitals. People are human capitals that helps production. Without human, we can't produce goods and services, and a lot of them has left. So economy kind of shrank by a lot. And same as it tend to happen when war happens, right? Unless something like war happened, we don't see much of this, but it could happen. It can happen with bad weather, right? Especially the economy that is heavily relying on agricultural production, that can receive a horrible impact just by bad weather or bad climate. But I have Yom Kippur War and oil shock in 1973. Western economies suffer from this, including Japan, Europe, and the United States of America. So I think Egypt started an invasion into Israel, and several Arab countries, including I think Syria, started a war, um, started fighting with Israel, and a lot of these Arab countries that control oil, they they impose oil embargo on so many countries that is supportive toward Israel, and including the U.S. And as a result of this, their production capability has shrunk. Right? Imagine you're a factory, you own a factory, you run a factory, you need oil to move stuffs, right? Or you need electricity to move stuffs and make stuffs, and the price of those things has gone up quite rapidly because of um, the shortage of oils. In this case, you kind of have to make a decision to make less, because literally, economically, it wouldn't make sense to continue the current level of production when the input cost, including oil and electricity, are so high. So this happens, and when this happens, it's very hard, right? It's very hard to solve these issues. Unlike, well, I wouldn't say solving recession is necessarily easy, but all they need to do is stimulate the economy, right? Coordinate, or just influence all these households to start spending their money that they actually have at the same time. This way, they can achieve short-term growth. However, when destruction happens, and PPF has shifted inward, it's like you know, there's no fully effective way to get out of this situation. Like, what kind of policy, right? Well, you can give them money, stimulative, like checks and things like that. That wouldn't lead to um, the recovery or anything, because the production capability. Remember, this cannot go out of the PPF, right? So stimulative efforts wouldn't go anywhere either. So what are they gonna do? Not much, right? They have to suffer. At least uh, someone has to bear uh, the cost of this destructions, right? They can't really get away with it. Okay, finally, shift in what to produce, right? This is very example. Sorry, this is very good. I have a lot of very good example here, and this is really important to understand. So it's not about shifting PPF or shifting the point to inward or outward. It is about decisions. It is about preference, I would say. Shifting from here to here. This is the shift in what to produce. Good A and good B, they make more good A than before by sacrificing some of the production of good B. And I have better example here. Let's say this is military products. Tanks, uh, guns, and what else? Helicopters, airplanes, missiles, nukes. That's military products, right? And here we can have non-military goods, literally anything other than military related goods. It can be flowers, it can be books, it can be computers, it can be sofas, it can be couch, it can be fans, light, houses, buildings, anything. So economy can decide to shift this way, right? Maybe it's often driven by the government, but uh, well, household can make a decision. Well, not for this case, but household can make a decision to shift what kind of production would mainly take place in the economy. But in this case, it would be typically government, and that's what Japan is doing. Japan's defense budget to reach 1.9% of GDP in fiscal it used to be around 1%, I believe, or 1 point some. It was never like 2% or 1.9%. However, we are deciding to expand our military budget, and obviously, when especially when economy is producing at a full employment level, which we kind of are, looking at very low unemployment and um, you know inflation, I would say. um, we have to be sacrificing something else when we shift, when we produce military, right? um, whether if it's people, labors, lands, different ingredients, materials. If we're making more of military products, we have less people available, we have less material available, we have less land available, we have less of all these resources available for non-military goods and services. So by definition, other product would experience sluggish growth or even shrinkage. But well, it's still like 2%. We're moving from 1% to 2%. It's not like from 1% to 20%. So it may not be as clear. It may not be like, oh, literally every single products other than military products, or having its price spiking. We might not see that, but maybe you could argue we're already seeing that in Japan. We're suffering from inflation. A lot of things are, a lot of goods and services are, yeah, having its price increasing quite rapidly. So, but what you want to know about, what I want you to know about this shift is that this wouldn't necessarily coincide with GDP fluctuation, GDP growth, or GDP decline or recession or anything, because we're using for all the resources available to produce what we want to produce, and we're just simply changing what we're producing using available resources. It's not like available resources are expanding, economic capability is expanding, or we're leaving a lot of economic resources unused. It's not like it's none of that. It's just about preference issues. So it's not like GDP would go down or up as a result of this. You could argue that, for example, if economy focus more on producing capital goods, then no what is it called, consumer goods, like let's say consumer and capital goods. Then if we focus more on capital goods in a long term, it will expand like this, because capital helps the production. It's an investment, so it expands the economic production capability of the economy. So you could argue that what kind of preference you would have will actually influence the future growth. It is possible. However, in the short term, that wouldn't be the case. Its GDP wouldn't necessarily change as a result of this. It's more about the quality of GDP changing, right? Because GDP, remember, it's simply about total values of goods and services, all the goods and services, final goods and services produced in the economy, and it doesn't actually tell you what it is producing, right? Are you producing a lot of food and healthcare services, or are you producing a bunch of things that kill other people, such as weapons? So yeah, that's it for today. Very very important to know this difference. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4. Whenever you look at other people, like for example, you can analyze, um, politicians' policies, or let's say you've got a president and who conducts some several policies. You can analyze the impact of those policies through the lens of PPF, right? Which of these which of the shift is happening under this administration, right? You could argue that during Biden's administration there was great focus on infrastructure because Biden spent quite a lot of money on infrastructure, transportation, some renewable energy related things, I believe, something like that. The economy was shifting that way, right? But you could also argue that okay, maybe during first Trump's administration especially, the large tax cut probably stimulated the economy and it led to short-term growth, right? And we did see expansion, relatively high level of GDP growth during first 4 or 3 years of Obama until, sorry, not Obama, Trump, until COVID recession happens. Or you can think about Obamacare, or Obama conducted a lot of policies to stimulate the economy, give money to people, uh, help people pay for healthcare. Government help people pay for healthcare services. They give subsidy, things like that. You can argue that that's a short-term growth in a sense, like in a sense that um, in a sense that the economy was in recession in 2008 and he was elected in 2008. But you could also argue that that's a shift in what to produce. Economy is focusing more on healthcare rather than non-healthcare goods. So these will certainly help you understand the shift that economy is experiencing in different period of time. So it's a very useful tool.